Wi-Fi. You don't need to deal with all that nonsense. And when I walk around my house, whenever I get on the Wi-Fi, I lose my signal. It's the AT&T signal on one phone and the T-Mobile on the other. Between those three things, I can get a connection. That's not equitable. If you're on a, most people have one connection, and if it goes out, they can't have their meeting, or they can't go to school, or they can't do their job anymore, let alone let their kid try to have a play date on a phone, or whatever it is we're doing. So even if people do have phones, they need more phones, and I think we need to collect up phones, because the phones is going as far back as the 6 are as good as anything out there. That's what I'm using to talk to you right now, and I'm using my iPhone 11 to film and make and work. So I think that would be something I'm going to be devoting. That would make sense for my program, like to just start collecting up equipment, and I'll distribute it to all of you in wherever cities you are, and then we can pass them around if we need them in places like they're doing with the ventilators. If there's places, if we get through it, some wave, and then we have equipment, we can share it. We send it to the next place and clean it up and use it. I don't know if that's practical, but I think use cell phones and going and trying to make connections to get free cell phone service would be a really good idea in the short term for the kids that aren't going to complete the school year. Because my son's privileged. We have a great PTA. They picked up the ball. His teacher's doing everything he needs to do. We have all the parents are connected in the classroom. That's not the case in most schools. It's not the case in almost all of them. So I have extra energy I'm willing to put into this. I'm willing to spearhead a movement to get equipment and educational supplies and teachings. Like the teachers that are good, they're only teaching 3, 4, 8 hours a day. Some of them might be willing to teach another class if it meant. I don't know. That's what I'm thinking is get the phones instead of doing it for a few dozen people in Sistrunk and in my neighborhood or in this neighborhood and the next neighborhood. Like this could be a program. We got to get the kids back into school who aren't going to school. It's the first thing I ask Gio when every time I talk to him, say, are you going to school every day? Are you logging in? Are you doing your homework? I don't want to talk to you about art projects until you've done your schoolwork first, because it is very important. But you got to go to school first. You got to do your math and your reading, and you got to graduate. And how many, that was the first thing that I cried about, was how many of these kids are going to now, they were already up against the odds, and now they're not going to probably graduate just because of the little ripple. And it's one generation after another, every wave of children being affected by this. They're not going to feel the pain for 18 years, but then we're going to have another crime wave, and we're going to wonder what happened. Why 20 years from now, why are we having these problems again? So if we can stop whatever we can do now to get these kids back in school, that's for me number one as far as what I have extra energy for.
What do you think about that, Jim?
I think that's awesome. Let's do that.
Anybody wants to join me? I'm going to be doing on Facebook, like trying to send out art stuff and doing distributions of food notices or whatever notices you send me through the placemaking stuff. I post everything you send me. And I don't really have an audience, but I know some of my audience has audience. So let them send it out to their friends of friends. I think that's what we need to do. And earlier, I'm trying to remember who Nahshid, right? Nahshid, is that your name?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, you were just saying how like some people do it and some people take care of it for other people, and I think that's just the way it is. If people can't talk on the phone, or they're despondent, or they're depressed, like someone else is gonna have to do it for them for now, and we could just and we just got to get the kids back in school whatever way possible. Every artist I know would be part of this. So that I'm gonna put out. This is it. Put out a call for cell phones, whatever cell phone we can get out, and then we'll figure out how to network them up.
Speaking of which, like the sis said earlier, like I live in Cairo. During the daytime, people go to work and stuff like that, so the internet's super fast because nobody's home. But me and my kids, they homeschool, so we're home. The internet's super fast, but like right now, it's like 2 and 3 in the morning. Everybody's home. Everybody's online at the same time, and the internet, my signal's going in and out. You know what I mean? So I think that not only having Wi-Fi, but like it would be cool to have like conversations like this archived, right? So for people who can't be at the meeting or be present during the live session or whatever, there's a YouTube archive, or there's something that you can share with people.
Yes.
They could go to it 3 years from now. You know what I'm saying? They could go to it tomorrow or next week, or when they do have availability, you know, because everybody, you know, I had to take a nap and wake up just to be on this call. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But for the people who can't make it,
it's being taped.
Yeah,
and
so
it will be on YouTube.
Okay, good.
Okay, that's great.
Can you just bleep out some of my words?
Yep. We will. We will.
Thank you. All right, good.
Yeah, maybe all of them. Be careful.
Well, be careful what you ask for too, because we're gonna change everything. It can't go the way it is. It doesn't make any sense. I keep telling my mom and other family members, like, oh, it's great that we were able to get together for the holidays. Everybody got together for the holidays. It was so helpful that everybody could do Zoom, but it's not good enough. This is just barely a triage for the time being. I want to have meaningful interactions. So I've been creating meaningful interactions with real people, and everybody's still paranoid because their Facebook feed is filled up with bad news. So I want to try to make real interactions, and I'm going to do that with this thing. I'm thinking that's going to be Art Box Club's like charity is going to be gathering cell phone equipment that still will work and distribute it to kids that don't have schools. And anybody that wants to help me, it's Art Box Clubs on Facebook and Instagram, and I'm Michael D. Moss. Please contact me if you're interested. I'm going to do that.
I just wanted to add, Michael, and then anybody who might be interested, because I know sometimes I hear this where, you know, when you're on Facebook and people are like, oh, I don't want to hear about this, you know, the politics of this, or whatever that subject matter that is just so frustrating. There are ways that you could block out keywords to not have that come up into your feed. On the reverse, because Facebook is like, you know, algorithms and all those things, right? So things that you want to see more of, if you actually go in and engage with more of those type of posts, you're going to see more of those come up in your feeds, as well as people, right? So let's say if Scott and I are on Facebook, if I keep liking, you know, engaging, like liking, commenting, whatever on his posts, I'm going to see more of Scott's information in my feed. So just, we could use that knowledge for ourselves, because I do see a lot of people like, oh, I'm so tired of seeing this. And they can filter that out. And
the other thing is you interact like by like while you're doing a show, like if somebody says there's something I like it really helps you see who's actually there. It's hard when you're broadcasting to know if somebody's really there or they just kind of like popped in and popped out. So if they put up hearts or they just interact, I'm begging people to interact. They won't interact. Like, you can talk to Mr. Rogers, you can talk to Niki, you can talk to Captain Kangaroo and Darius. Like, how can people not be excited about doing that? And they just sit there. And you go over to a poetry show and people are all commenting and they're making, like, they know how to do it. They know how to interact. Everybody else is sitting back and waiting for us to entertain them. And I'm like, I'm not here for your entertainment. I'm here to pass all this stuff along in like an entertaining way so that you pay attention. I think this is a lot of fun, quite honestly. There's nothing more interesting, I think, artistically than a really big challenge. And I can't think of a bigger one. This is the scariest one ever, right? So like we could do it. We got to reprogram everything, but if they don't have equipment, then they can't see us. And with this type of thing should be available this type of meeting should be available, like you said, even if it's 3 years later, to everybody. And I think that it is. This is like the old school taverns of the founding of the democracy, but it could very easily be commandeered and used against us immediately. So I just think we kind of need a rush to get online, be first, connect up. I think there is an urgency to this that people are just like, oh, well, I'll just do Zoom meetings and whatever. I think that whole idea of like programming your algorithm, like you said, Niki, it wasn't that easy. I did it for 2 weeks. I told it I don't want to see people fighting the parking meters and getting out of their cars and smashing each other with golf clubs. I had no idea what that was. Like, people think that that's being programmed at them, but if you just keep watching it, then it's going to get more of it. But if you tell it, don't show me that for like 2 weeks, it's not that easy, but I still get one once in a while. But
yeah, well, you have to like train because these are all run by AI and all those things like that. So you have to train it, but we also have to be mindful of what we engage with, because it's like the law of attraction, right? Whatever we give our attention to, whatever we give a like or a mad face, right? So if we're mad facing something that we don't like, guess what? It's still going to come up because we're showing the internet, the interwebs, that this is something you know, even though we're giving an opinion about it, we're still engaging with it. So Facebook is going to be like feeding more. And then also our smart devices. You know, there's many people who said, I was having a conversation at lunch with such and such, and the next day I see an ad for something I said, you know. So all of those things, you know, are impacting what we see and what comes up for us. So if we have that in the back of our minds, then as we're sharing, you know, content that is relevant or that we want to get out there, and also, you know, not allowing people to tune you out, right? So sometimes I'm helping people with their social media, and sometimes when people have a product or a service, they only want to talk about that product or service. Doesn't matter how good it is, the 10th time you said about this product or service, I'm ignoring you now. Like that phone call, you're like, oh gosh, you're going to try to sell me this thing. I don't want to pick up the phone. So being mindful of that when we're giving out these information, no matter how important it is to us, we also have to have something else that we're peppering into, you know, like some people say, oh, the 80-20 rule, right? 80% your business, 20% your personal life. Or sometimes I might put something about music. I love music and dance. It's not necessarily something that I do or something funny or frivolous, but I also want to make sure that's there, because once people lock you in for a certain thing, they also can lock you in and tune you out because they feel like, oh, I already know what Niki's going to say. So when we have content to share, we also need to make sure that we're not sounding like a broken record online in any of these social spaces where that's all we're talking about, because then when people see that, they tune you out. You know, or we can share other people's stuff. Sometimes we don't have to be the originator of that content, right? But sharing other people's stuff so they know that you're a resource, but not that that's the only thing that exists in your mind, because people will tune it out.
Great point.